and welcome to Match Fishing TV. In tonight's show, we'll be looking back at the Press Innovations Festival from Whiteacres, the culmination of that, the Park Dean Masters, and in the second half of the show, we've got a special guest joining us. So for the first half, I'm joined in the studio by Tom Scully.
Hello.
And Matt Godfrey.
Evening.
Right, okay, Press Innovations Festival. That's where you two skived off to last week.
Yeah.
How did it go?
It was really good, as always. It's always one of the most competitive events on the calendar, isn't it, Matt?
Certainly.
Basically, because it's the only festival at Whiteacres, you've actually got to qualify to fish, and you do that either by finishing in the top 50 of one of the other major festivals down there, or winning one of the weekly gold matches. So everybody who's down there is a very good angler, and it's always a really, really high standard. I mean, the downside of that is that if you don't draw so well, there's very little you can do about it, because obviously all the good pegs have got good anglers on them. But I couldn't be more happy to see who actually ended up winning it. James Dent, good friend of ours. He had a brilliant week. He had maximum points, didn't he, in the end?
Yeah.
Total weight of 358.5, dropping 7 points. Just an unbelievable week, really.
Yeah, the performance of the week for me came from James. He drew peg 1 on Match Lake, which is going down one of the arms. It had been like the dreaded peg for the Medway Festival the week before. And like Andy Bennett drew it, I think it was the day before Dent had it, and had £3 off it. So everyone thought, well, that's Dent's festival over. Yeah. And he's caught 6 carp for £58 and won the section. Like, unbelievable. No one could believe it when he lifted his net out. But that one performance goes to show on this festival that even if you think you're on a terrible one, there's a chance still that you can pull it back and catch some fish.
Yeah. And he didn't drop that result?
He won the section.
So, okay, and you got on reasonably well, didn't you?
I come 13th, I did. I just missed out.
Yeah, but that's reasonably well on this, isn't it? Because it gets you through to the big money match.
Yeah, the Park Dean Masters, the match on the Saturday. So the top 24 go through to that. But before we move on to it, it's worth noting second, third, fourth in the festival.
Absolutely.
Again, big names. Rob Button was second. He had 37 points, dropping a 6. Lee Edwards, Welsh International, was third. He had 32 points, dropping a 1. And Andy Power was fourth. And the close result was, I was actually in Andy Power's section. And on the final day, he needed a section win. And he drew in the same section as Steve Ringer at Belingia, which is like the carp fishing day of the 5, out of the 5. And they were fish for fish in the last hour. Steve didn't catch anything early. And Andy caught a load early. Then Andy stopped catching late on and Steve started bagging down the edge. I can't remember the exact weights, but Steve ended up winning the section with about £151. And Andy was second with something like 149. And if Andy had beat Steve, Andy would have won the festival.
Yeah.
So that's how close it was.
Yeah.
It's exciting stuff. You definitely feel...
It's also a great holiday week, though, isn't it? I mean, let's be honest.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Even though there is an awful lot at stake, there's an awful lot of headaches at the draw each morning.
Absolutely. We had a few good nights out, didn't we?
A few Guinnesses.
We did. Especially me. It was all over for me by Tuesday night, so I had all week to get a ball of kick.
New key, student night, everything.
No, it's definitely one of those that's worth winning, and hence the brilliant lineup.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the top 24
Yeah.
qualify for the Park Dean Masters, and this is a £25,000 winner take all.
Yeah, winner take all. 24 pegs on the far bank of Jenny's Lake. The lineup were amazing. I was lucky enough to finish 13th, and we're in the final. And I wanted to take my autograph book up on stage with me. You just sat there, and everyone who gets up, it's just like you can just hear everyone mumbling under the breath. We could have.
Well, I followed a lot of it because Tom obviously covered it for Match Fishing Live, and there were regular updates throughout the day. I saw the draw, and you're absolutely right. The lineup was incredible. Scary.
But no stranger won it. In fact, he must be the richest postman in the UK now. Mr. John Wincup, frenzy man. He won it with £92, I think he had, didn't he, off Jenny's?
He did,
and he didn't draw a fancied peg. Were he at peg 11?
It's interesting you say that, but he said to me in the morning, I actually went along and did a live interview with everybody on the bank.
And he fancied it.
He said to me, I really fancy it here.
Yeah.
Which was interesting. But Jamie Wilde did win 2 years ago from, I think, 2 pegs to John's right in that narrow bit as well. I think sometimes what happens, you've got a lot of angling pressure on one bank, a lot of spectators on the other bank, and there's a bit of cover there, and maybe the fish just push.
Just push out. Yeah.
And it's
Where the
the only
cover is.
peg where you can reach the island with 16 metres,
Yeah.
so you can fish a pole into the shallow water as John did, loose-fed pellets
Yeah.
aggressively, caught these big carp. I'll tell you something else that was funny. The night before, we stayed out quite late, didn't we? And Winnie was... stood-
Never. Really?
Well, we did have a couple. And Winnie was stood there with his pint. It was last man in bar, I'm sure. He was still there when I left. And he
But
said...
he's much bigger than you, so he can
Yeah.
take a lot
he
more
can. He's
ale.
got all the legs, hasn't he? And I says, "What, are you excited?" He says, "You know what?" He says, "I've got a feeling." He says, "Before I won the match this, I had a feeling." And he says, "And I'm not saying blowing my own trumpet or anything, but I have got a feeling about tomorrow." He says, "I've just been on phone to my missus and told her I've got a feeling," and he's gone and won it.
Yeah.
Probably got him, she's already spent it.
It was funny. I did that live coverage of the weigh, and you can see that on the Match Fishing Facebook page if anybody's interested. But I went along recording, and as you do it, you can see comments popping up.
Yeah.
I know John's missus, she's called Ivy Rowell, and she kept popping up and saying, "Go on, John." She was cheering him on all the way along, so she was obviously following the
Digitally,
progress.
yeah.
And as soon as it got to the end, I bet she did place some orders, you know.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, it was great coverage. I mean, the feedback, some stars are staging screen, as you say. You know, I saw Tom Pickering was really positive about the coverage he gave of it.
Yeah, it was a nice match to cover, though. You don't get many chances to see so many good anglers in such a prestigious final. Really, you can get up close and personal. It was great.
Yeah, brilliant match.
Okay, so it was the Nearly man.
Ben Fisk was second place. I actually drew next to him, or next to me, he battered me. He had £47, and the interesting thing about Ben's performance is Jenny's Lake's got these Carasio in, which are like an F1 sort of fish, notoriously shy biting. And
Everybody used to call F1s Carasio many years ago.
Well, Fisky seems to be the only man who catches him on that Jenny's Lake. He's got something sorted for him. I don't know what it is. I tried to watch, but obviously I was concentrating myself. But he had £47 of these Carasios again, fishing pellets, shallow.
But if the feedback hadn't been getting to him about John Winkup, he'd have fancied himself as doing really well. Because
definitely.
Certainly the talk before the Masters was that £40 to £60 was likely to be a weight that would put you in with a chance.
Yeah.
I mean, John's was absolutely a standout weight, much bigger, a much higher weight than I think anybody in that lineup thought was possible on that day.
Yeah,
definitely. The only thing I will say is, like on that match this final, they do have a second and a third in section. So if you were in Fisky's position and you were doing quite well, you'd be thinking, "Oh, well, I could win £5,000 for second, or £3,000 for third, or even £1,000 section sort of thing."
A winner take all.
But a winner take all, it's brutal, isn't it? Well, that's what it's all about.
Okay, we got a video interview with John after the event.
I'm here with the newly crowned Park Dean Master, John Winkup. John, what are you in your bag?
Mental, isn't it? Absolutely mad. Madness, Tom.
In the last 5 weeks, I've seen you pick up £95,000.
Not normal, is it?
I mean, we've been watching you today. What a match!
Oh, lovely. Wow, it's so lovely. I've lost a few in them brambles over there, but obviously that matter now. But just had a nice simple match again, just like the other week. Just ping pellets long all day long. Fish the same rig all day. Just kept nicking odd carp, but real big fish. Oh, lovely days fishing, really.
Awesome.
Lovely days fishing.
And what are you going to do with the 25 and the other 70?
No idea. Absolutely no idea. It's not normal, is it?
It couldn't happen to a nicer bloke, and it's thoroughly well deserved. Well done, John.
Cheers, mate.
Well, Tom, thanks very much for that. Well done, John. Okay, now here's a weird one. What's the most number of fish you've ever caught on a single cast? Matt?
Personally, I've caught 2 on a single cast before. I was fishing in Cleethorpes with my dad once, and I had a fish swim through my feeder. So when I reeled in, there was a fish wedged in my feeder. And I also had one on the hook, so I got a fish in my feeder.
I've had 4 mackerel on at once, but that was on a set of 6 feathers, so...
What about you, Tom?
I had a moral dilemma once. I was in a match on Osprey Lake at Westwood Lakes, and Osprey Lake's absolutely solid with little F1s. And I was catching F1s shallow. And I shipped back with an F1. It was a bit bigger than it, was probably about that big. It dived down, so I've gone for a scoop. I've gone to scoop it, and I've come up with two other F1s in my net.
No.
So I thought, well, I haven't really caught them, so I did have a pang of conscience and put them back. But
Really?
yeah.
I'm staggered. Okay, the reason that we ask is obviously there's some matches where multiple hooks are allowed. Used to be a big thing in the northwest, obviously. Certainly swing tipping with a hook and a dropper hook. So double hookups was really, really common. But it's allowed at Loch Ken as well.
Certainly is, and this weekend was the SFCA feeder only match at Loch Ken. And I got an interesting text message off Stephen McAveney saying, guess what's happened today? I've caught 4 fish in one cast. So I texted him back, how the hell have you done that, like? He says, well, we're catching some skimmers on a feeder. He'd done well the first day. I think he was 3rd on the match on the first day. And on the second day, he's catching some fish on the feeder. Double hooking, as you do on Loch Ken.
As you're allowed to.
Yeah, everyone has 2 hooks on up there. And his tip's gone round and he's wound in with 2 skimmers on. Netted the bottom one, netted the second one, as you do. Look down, there's another piece of line coming from his bottom up. So he's bent down, picked this line, and he'd cracked off earlier that day, right? And I'm not good enough to do this, I'm not accurate enough at casting to do this. And he's got this other piece of line, and it were his other rig that he'd cracked off on, which had 2 hooks on. So he's put these 2 skimmers in his net, started hand lining this other piece of line in, felt a little tug back, brought it in. He got a £3 bream on his top hook.
That's not a skimmer.
And a 3-ounce perch on his bottom hook. So in theory, he caught 4 fish in one cast.
That's the way to
Now,
do it.
do
isn't
we
it?
know whether Steve put them in his net or put them back?
I haven't got a clue. I'd have definitely put them in my net.
Oh yeah, if they're on his gear.
Yeah.
If you reckon that's definitely my hook.
Yeah, there you go. But I thought that were really interesting. And he went on to win the event over the 2 days. He had £24.4 on the second day. Damien Duxbury was second with £21.12. And Mike Shaw second, third, 16.8. Yeah.
Now, I was gonna sing the praises of Steve McConey because I've known Stephen McConey for a very long time, and I was going to, eulogise about what a wonderful angler he was, and then you spoiled it, but he's cracked off on the cast. Really, the people like Tom Pickering don't crack off on those ever. So, Steve, no, you were nearly a hero, but 4 fish on one cast. I mean, that is something.
Impressive, that.
Yeah, well. Okay, North East Winter League.
Yes. Well, we were done, wasn't it, this week?
Yeah, the River Don. I wasn't able to get back to fish it, unfortunately. But my team, Dren and Barnsley, did really well. They won on the day. They had 24 points. Sensas North was joint second with the Daiwa Dons, but beat them on section wins. Both them teams had 27 points, and Ossett, who won the first round,
Yeah, which was a big talking point for us last week.
Yeah, so they've got a little bit of catching up to do now.
Is it a cumulative points or match points league?
You know what? It's really bad, but I don't know.
It's match points.
Is it match
I think
points?
it's match points,
It is,
so
yeah.
it'll be interesting to see whereabouts we are now.
Yeah.
I think the Angling Trust, all winter leagues are now match points. I think it's a part of the new winter league rules. Fairly sure.
Right.
Which personally I've always felt was the fairest way of doing something. You know, it gives you a reason for staying at your peg and fishing as hard as you can, even if it's not very good. An extra
absolutely.
point or 2 points can make a big difference.
But that river's fishing really well at the minute. On the individual front, Romeo, Sebaceous, great angler.
Yeah.
We fished with him all winter. He won the match with £20 11 ounce. Second place was Paul Nichols with 19.14, and third place Pat Daly from Ossett with 19.11. They were all skimmer weights, and they all come from the end section. Like often that first little bit, pegs 1 to 10 are associated with the weights, but actually came from the 50s this time. All top 3 in the match came from the same section, but good weights throughout, plenty of small fish, and a
Cracking
few
venue,
skimmers.
isn't it? The Don is absolutely
Yeah.
brilliant. So underused, isn't it, by
Definitely.
anglers? Brilliant.
So there's a few walks involved, that's why.
There are walks, but it's nice walking. It's
nice,
flat.
flat, you can tow stuff, you can push stuff.
Yeah, it's...
If you've got one of these new motorised barrows, you can push half your team along. But
That's it.
there are some long treks.
There are, yeah, that's true.
Okay, so we're going to take a break, and in the second half of the show, we're going to be joined by a special guest. See you in a minute. Welcome back, and as promised we have a special guest in the studio, and joining myself and Tom is Andy Neal.
How are we doing, everyone? All right?
Yeah, good. Andy, you're, before we start talking about this weekend's matches, bit of a change of business for you. You're now bringing Milo into the UK.
Absolutely, yeah. Over the last probably 9 months, really, we've launched the business where we're going to look to develop and bring Milo back into the UK.
Great brand, great gear. I mean, I've known Milo for a very long time.
Fabulous, yeah. I've done a lot of work with him with my association with Bait Tech, obviously. He distributes our products out in Italy, so having the opportunity to work closely with someone of Milo's experience is just, you know, it's revolutionised my fishing, really. It brings so much more to what I do.
But a lovely story about him, actually, that my brother won't thank me for repeating here. Many years ago, we fished a team match, teams of 6 match on the Fenland Drains. Milo was over with a load of his Italian mates for the weekend. I think it was the run-up to the Evesham Festival. And I was asked, can you get somebody to make up a 6th with the Italians to fish this team event? So I said, well, I'll get my brother to fish. And at the time, he was probably about 16, something like that. I didn't know Milo had been practicing for 3 or 4 days for this event on the 40-foot, and he got it absolutely sussed. And he developed this, he was feeding loads and loads and loads of sloppy ground bait, catching lots and lots of little fish, something that none of us locals had ever done. We used to fish for roach on the Emp and eels on the long pole and bronze maggot. Anyway, they've had the draw. I've introduced him to John, my younger brother, and Milo's given John like a sort of 2-minute brief on, I want you to throw all this ground bait in, given this huge bucket, and afterwards John's come up to me and said, he's given me all this ground bait. I said, nah, you're joking, don't do that on the 40-foot. Anyway, all the Italians have done brilliantly. John's absolutely bombed doing what I've told him to do. And afterwards Milo said, he's a stronzo. Now, I can't...
No, I know what that means.
You know what a
Yeah,
stronzo means.
yeah.
So, if anybody wants to look up online what a stronzo is, my poor brother was christened one by Milo Colombo, one of his all-time angling heroes, for fishing for eels when they're all catching like double figures of little bleak and roach.
Yeah, Stevie Gardner's called me it once or twice. Yeah, I know all about that. But
So, that was my brother's claim to fame, fishing with the Italians. Okay, right, enough fun. The Wye Winter League kicked off this weekend, and
yeah, well, obviously the River Wye, Hereford, very local to me. I drive over it to work several times a week, and it's absolutely full of fish at the moment.
I love the Wye. That's a proper fishing.
Unbelievable, yeah. It's, I mean, we sort of laugh and joke at it, call it, you know, a bit of a man's river, but when you're fishing a river that's in best form, when it's probably 5 foot on, is you know, it takes a bit of getting used to, granted, but the amount of perch, the amount of dace and roach soon to be in the river at the moment is phenomenal. I mean, the first round of the Winter League this year, Dave Webb won with £44, I think it was, mainly perch, some dace on a 7-metre whip. I mean, I've never caught £40 of perch in a match.
It's an incredible day's fishing.
Brilliant,
That.
unbelievable.
Well, I saw Dave Harrell had put something on Facebook this weekend. He'd had a £20 weight, and there were an awful, you could see from the picture, there were an awful lot of perch in his net as well.
I spoke to Dave this morning actually when I did put this together, and he said he got there and the river was very low and very clear, and he thought it had fished really hard. You know, he said so he decided to set his stall out for bleak, and about an hour and a half in, he said somebody strolled up to him and said, well, the good news is, Dave, you're probably catching more bleak than anybody else on the river. And Dave's gone, oh, brilliant.
The bad news, you'll be last.
So the bad news is everybody else is catching perch and dace down there. So he said he's put his shorter whip down, picked pole to hand rig up, and he just started clattering, you know, chublets, perch, dace. He's had a brilliant day's fishing. But £23 he had, and apparently he reckons that was between 12 and 15. So,
well, like you, I spoke to Spud this morning.
Andrew Murphy.
And lives around the corner from me. He's had £28 of dace, and I saw surely he probably won the match. No, he was 8th. 20 weights over £20.
Yeah, and that's on a low clear river. That is incredible.
Yeah.
Brilliant fishing.
Yeah. I think this year, with all the river events that are going on that are selling out, I think, you know, it's quite clear there's a huge demand for it. Yeah. And it's easy to see why, you know. The state of river fishing at the moment is awesome. You know?
It's awesome. Dave actually asked me to mention the Riverfest final, obviously on there in November. He says some of the anglers that have qualified for that this year, that's going to be a real spectacle. If the river's in half decent shape for that match, Will Raisin qualified on Saturday on the Thames apparently. Obviously, we've got Sean Ashby in there now, Dave's in there, Hayden Whittle's in there. It's going to be some spectacle, that isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, even
It's come of age, isn't it, Riverfest?
Oh, for sure. It's a huge event now, and if anybody can get there and watch that class of angler on a river that, fingers crossed, we get the right weather, so it's in good nick.
Fingers crossed. A touch of colour in it, some extra pace on it.
It will be an unbelievable event to watch, for sure.
Excellent. Okay, so well done to Dave Webb. And Wolves were the top team on the opening round.
Yeah, Wolves won the first round. My team, Shakespeare Super Team, were joint with Woody's in second. So you've got some great river anglers and some good teams. It'll be it's going to be a great event. Another great league ahead, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, it'll be great. Tom, let's have a quick chat about the Sensas Challenge Grand Final.
Yes, I felt a little bit guilty when I found out about this match because I actually rung Darren Bickerton about 10 o'clock this morning to get the lowdown on what had happened. And he sounded very sleepy. And I said, I don't, you're all right. I said, I presume he'd be travelling back. I thought they'd have stayed over, but he hadn't. He got back at 6:30 this morning and I woke him up, got him out of bed to answer the phone. So he wasn't best pleased.
Thank you, Darren.
But the plus side is for his Starlets team, which was Darren Bickerton, Mark Downs, Sean Ashby, Steve Emery himself. They actually came sixth. They were the best performing English team. And out of, I think he said there was 128 teams in it.
Really?
So,
it's not a bad side, that, mind you.
No, it's not.
It's not a bad side.
It's not. But, big old competition. Yeah. It's one of the super finals, this. So there were 500 plus pegs. And it took place on a venue, now I'm going to try and pronounce this, so you have to bear with me, called Le Sevre near Troyes, which is...
That's not bad. We'll go with
Is
that.
that all right?
Yeah, well done. You obviously had lessons.
Well, no, I wouldn't know about that. But
not in French.
No, that's it. He said it's about 100 miles from Bordeaux, and that was about the closest big place that he could tell me it was near. So that's where it was. Sounded very interesting fishing, though. A lot of roach and skimmers to catch. Difficult fishing, some waggler fishing, some long pole fishing. And it was actually won by the BBC, or the Bordeaux Bruges competition team, which is a census-backed team. And they took the verdict, so it was a good couple of days, I think.
Excellent.
These large European events are amazing, aren't they? Brilliant. I haven't been lucky enough to fish over in Europe a bit over the last few years. I can't get there enough.
Really?
Yeah.
We talked about it a few weeks ago, Andy. It's a completely different
it is.
way of fishing them out. I mean, okay, methods are very, very similar, but the whole experience, the kind of later draw and the social side to it, and the
really,
huge trophies.
And as well as the traditional venues, there's more and more on commercials cropping up as well now. And it's great. The rules as well I like, the international rules, the pole limits and what have you, pole length limits, bait limits, all these things. It just brings the tactical element into it a lot more. And quite often you find the best teams doing well. Yeah. Which is what we all want, and
it encourages thinking anglers, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It rewards thinking anglers, I should say. Excellent. Okay, now you alluded to it earlier on. There's been another Riverfest qualifier this weekend on the Medway.
Yep, Barry Oliver won the match with £12 I think it was a lot of ground bait, a lot of small fish fishing, but loads of bites, really good fishing. Ground bait and pinkies, I think. Martin Caldercote was second with £9.4. Again, so lots and lots of bites, really busy day. Paulie Dale second, 7.15, and Chris King 7.12. So close weights, plenty of bites, really busy fishing. Another good event.
So and the qualifiers: Barry, Martin Caldercote. Martin Caldercote. I mean, I see Sam Merry has gone through as well. I mean, I know Sam very well, but Martin, they've been sort of way out of their normal area to get down to the Medway for that. It's
interesting, Sam, it was actually Sam who I spoke to get a rundown on what had happened, and he went down the Thames on Saturday for the Riverfest qualifier. I couldn't get the result for that one, but he travelled down there and had a bad day, he drove back, and obviously drove back to Leicester, and he said he very, very nearly didn't go down to the Medway.
Well, if Leicester City had been playing, he wouldn't have gone, because he doesn't fish 2 days if City are at home.
Well, he said like, but it's been such a labour of love for him this year. He's travelled all over the country trying to qualify, and this was his last chance to do it.
Yeah.
So he got up, made the effort. I think well over 3 hours, I would have thought, from Leicester down to Kent, wasn't it? Or certainly close
it's
to
a good 3 hours to the Medway, easy, yeah.
But fortunately, it's paid off for him. So
so well done, guys, and particularly well done to Sam, because former teammate of mine, and the drive's paid off. Well done. Okay, Heronbrook Winter League.
Yes, this sounded like an incredible match. I mean, Heronbrook's got a habit of throwing up some of these sort of epic big weight matches, and this was one of them. A total of 29 £100 plus weights on the 64 peg match.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
And that's meant to be a winter league, you know.
Yeah.
But it was won by Drayton Northwest, who've got a great set of guys for that particular league. And it was actually one of their lads who took the individual title as well, and that was Conor Barlow. He had £208.10 from peg 8 on Meadow. And I spoke to him this morning, and he said it's one of the best lakes, obviously, at Heronbrook Meadow. And the amount of room they had on there as well made for, you know, a great match for the anglers who were lucky enough to draw on there. He caught pinging pellets on the long pole. Colin Mayer, who was another Northwest angler, he was on peg 24, he caught on pellets short. And Brad Parks, who was third, was actually next to Connor on peg 4, and he's caught 163.4 on caster shallow, so an epic match.
£160 in a winter league and you come third. What's the world coming to?
Yeah, I mean, Connor, he's probably one of what I regard now as one of these sort of almost superstars of commercials, aren't they? They seem to be a group emerging, Randy Bennett's, etc., that just seem to be a bit, you know, a cut above. They're just absolute machines.
Yes.
The way they read the peg, the way they read how the fish are acting in the peg, how to fish them, what baits to use. You know, trying to keep up for myself. You know,
but it's interesting, you used the word machines, and it is interesting that the guys that are really at the top of their game, Will Raisin kind of kicked it off a few years ago. It's almost, you couldn't see anybody get fishing as fast as him. And it's almost automatic.
Yeah.
And they are so slick and so smooth at everything they do. Not a second is wasted.
No, that's right.
And it's just practice. Everything becomes second nature. And it is, it's like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, completely that. And the reason they're able to do that is because they're so confident in what they're doing. The process of catching fish to them is second
Netting
nature.
fish, doing it, yeah.
So all of their time is spent thinking about how to get a bite.
Yeah.
And that's why they're as good as they are.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
And just to round off this week's show, Mucknow, we talked about the Pairs Festival briefly last week, and it's followed by an individual festival.
Well, for me, certainly, it's one of those things that I've got quite a long bucket list, and that's on them. It's only time that is unfortunately against me at the moment, but I'm certainly keen to get back to Ireland as soon as I can.
Well, those big festivals, like the Whiteacres Festival you've just been on in Cornwall, they've got everything going for them.
Yeah.
Apart from the weather, it rains a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the flip side, I think they enjoy themselves on the black stuff when they go over, don't they?
Totally.
But yeah, the festival comprises 3 days on the pole, 2 days on feeder. Simon Willsmore's won it with 53 kilos 200. Everyone knows how good Simon is.
Well, we talked about Simon last Monday. You know, Simon was one of the winning pair in the Pairs Festival, and he is just a cut above.
He's awesome, isn't he? Absolutely awesome.
Oh, yeah. I mean, on especially at that kind of fishing, which is what he really enjoys.
It's been tight, though.
He just excels. It has been tight, absolutely. But that's what makes such a great event, isn't it? You know.
Definitely. Yeah.
Steve Harwood second, 52 kilos.
So £2 over 5 days, £2 between them.
And just to note as well, they were the pair that won the Pairs Festival, Simon Willsmore and Steve Harwood. I've got to tell an embarrassing Steve Harwood story before we go any further, though. He obviously is over in Mucknow. I'm lying in bed the other night at about 20 past 12 or whatever, and my phone goes, "Hi honey, just get in the ferry, I'll be home with you in about 3 hours' time." So I looked down at it, Steve Harwood, obviously he meant to send it to his wife, so I just sent one back saying, "Okay darling, I'll be waiting for you."
Excellent, okay.
No, there's quite a few of the sort of usual names cropped up over there again. Climmy has come in third, Mark Pollard fourth, again, you know, 48, 47, another 47 kilos. Brilliant event, lots of fish caught.
Awesome, isn't it? 6 kilos separating fifth and first now, over the 5 days. You're not going to get any closer, are you?
That's a good close event.
Events like that, they just make you want to go, don't they? You know, when it's that close, you know, and you can compete and you're catching quality fish, natural fish like that. Definitely.
Well, thanks, Andy.
Pleasure, thank you.
Thank you.
So there you go, there's 2 things for your bucket list. An Irish festival is an absolute must, and a Cornish festival if you just want lots of headaches. See you next week.